record on. Thank you. All right. There was a lioness that grew up in a forest. And one day she had a litter of many cubs. And while wandering away from the cubs, one of the cubs wandered off and happened to meet a flock of sheep. The cub wandered into the center of the flock of sheep and started to live as a sheep does. And the farmer, recognizing the cub in amongst the sheep, thought that one day the cub would recognize that in fact it was a lion and would wander off and go and join other lions. And the sheep wandered and ate and wandered and ate. And the shepherd took the sheep to a very different forest. When they arrived, there was a lion that roared from the center of the forest. And all of the sheep ran away except the cub, who stood in awe and looked and listened. The lion approached the cub and said, "Why are you with the sheep? You are indeed a lion." And he roared as loud as he could. And the cub was rather nervous and timid. So the lion took the cub to the pond and showed him his reflection and said, "Indeed, you are a lion. Roar with me." And the two roared together. Of course, the story is not about sheep and lions, but it is about you. Much of society has been described as just being like a herd of sheep, following the needs of society from one location or belief to another. But the truth is, underneath your false perception, you are as mighty as a lion. And the spiritual progress of man is similar. It is to wake up into your truth. Some can do this by themselves, and others require the assistance of another. But many do not even know that they are a lion, that they are spirit. They are eternal and deathless. But they follow the pains of living a human life, when in truth they are so much more. And your spiritual progress, you would say to me, is rather slow. But the work you undertake is just one gentle step after another. There you appear, you never arrive anywhere. You never achieve quick enough. Your meditation is full of difficulty, and nothing you can do will assist you. But the journey to man, or from man to spirit, is meant to be slow, because it was slow on the way from spirit in its original form. Gradually, man moved away. And now, for those which have turned their head towards the light, they would slowly begin their journey back. And yet, when one looks in truth of the spiritual journey, the vast majority of the work is in fact done by spirit, not done by man. The individual thinks that his work is immense, never ending. But if there is any work to be done by the human side, then it is just the allowance of spirit to come into the physical world. Spirit are forever manipulating one's life and one's circumstances. In some cases, by the provision of some grace, and in other cases, by the provision of some obstacle. The vast majority of work is from the spiritual side. As this pushes, the soul pushes into man to have its presence known into the world. And quite often in the individual, it gives a feeling of separation and of being alone or lonely. And one would obviously, perhaps, well, obviously from the human side, think that this alone and loneliness may in fact be a difficulty, a mistake, an error. But it is that aloneness which pulls man towards the unity and pulls man towards its completion. Now, this comes from spirit beyond soul. And in fact, is the source of all love that flows into the world. So much of the work is done by the soul, manipulating life, and the human side just living or even enduring that life to realize that it is much more. So either you enjoy the journey or you are challenged by it. And even in the most difficult of challenges, if one sees the truth that this is just an obstacle provided by one's own soul, there can still be a sense of enjoyment. So in a moment, we will open to questions if you have any. Preferably about the spiritual part, but you may ask anything you want. But before then, may I have the healing list of names, please, Brandon?
Sharon Ann Phillips and Carly Hatton, Mandy Prince, Ross, Anthony and Susan Collins, Stacy, Lauren, Miss Stuckey, Mark, Taylor and Suzette, Kristen Howard Wielden, Mike Eskins, Evie Johnston, Audrey and Marilee, Dunk, Lorna, and Bill. Thank you.
So, Brandon, do we have a first question that I may assist with?
Yes, we do. First comes from Dave. Should sitting in the power and blending with spirit be undertaken in equal amounts? I assume he means here in equal amount of time. Thank you.
Should sitting in the power and blending with spirit be undertook in the equal amount of time? Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Well, the truth of all spiritual connection is one is already the spirit, and one is already a soul. So, depending upon one's journey, if one is working towards mediumship or if one is working towards spiritual realization, then either case, sitting for the connection of spirit must be done. Meditation will take you inwards, and sitting feeling energy will place your attention around the physical body into the aura or the energy within the room. So one will develop an external connection and one will develop an internal connection. So if you believe your God is external to you, then chasing God in the external world will be of your most interest. And then you must look and feel the God that is there. Now, for some people, this can be a path of devotion and saying, I worship something else. Maybe their deity or maybe a statue of some kind. And they would say God is then to be found in a heaven or sitting on a cloud. But after a period of time, one will start to realize the journey is not outwards, but inward. And therefore, the path changes from looking for spirit externally to looking at one's own spirit. Now, here, for many, spirit is found to be one in the same as the individual themselves. So now one is not separate to spirit, but one is spirit. So one says spirit is separate to me, and one says I am the spirit. So often the journey is seen first external, followed by, in truth, internal. So the love of a deity may change to the connection to a deity. Chasing spirit to being spirit. From experiencing spirit to the I am the spirit. Now, in the first instance, one can do the work of looking for an external spirit by themselves with minimal instruction. And indeed, the second path of looking inwards can also be done by oneself with minimal instruction. But the truth is, both ways, the individual can get very lost in lefts and rights and dead ends. So if one wants to increase the effectiveness or even the right pathway, one must find a true connection of someone that will guide them. That someone, of course, begins as a teacher. That teacher may just be a book. It may be just a passage or a particular piece of poetry. But very soon one will progress past that individual's knowledge. So what do they do then? And this is where the true guide is of benefit. So it is very possible to do the work by oneself, whether you look externally or internally. But very, very few can. Because often there is frustrations and agitations and also an immense amount of time that the individual fears that they must endure. And it comes to a certain point that the individual wants to know my direction and perhaps would say, what should I do? Where should I go? How do I bring all of this together? And this is best portrayed in a story. And again, this is a story I've told before. But one dark night, a man had to travel from one village to another. And he stood with a very small lamp on his doorstep, fearing to step out into the darkest of nights. But luckily, a wise man appeared at his doorstep and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I must take a journey of many hours, and alas, my lamp is not strong enough to light my journey." But the wise man said, "Well, the lamp will light the path, a few steps in front and a few steps behind, and that's all that you need to know. You do not need to light the whole pathway." So you see, one does not need to know the final journey to, or the final destination to begin the journey. It's more important that one takes a step along the path and accepts that one must move along the path. And it should be true with your spiritual life that you should take a step, one step, perhaps two is no more than you need. You do not need to know more than that. But this takes faith and trust. But how many paths are undertaken where one thinks they are going one way, but end up on a very different way? If the mind was involved, one may just be blindly heading towards a certain direction. But the heart speaks, and the heart says, well, there's a path off to the left. That's the way we should go. It's different to the normal way. Yet the head calls to go right and says we should follow that way. Which is the correct way? So is it correct that one should follow spirit externally or internally? So for today, for that individual person, it's important to follow the path that they feel. And if they are drawn more to chasing spirit externally, then that is their path. It may change in the future. If they are called to follow spirit internally, then that is their path. It may change in the future. You see, truth and love are sent from spirit towards the human at the same time in equal measure. The head will pick up knowledge and the heart will pick up love. And if one is a head-based person, then knowledge is the first impression one is given of spirit. But if one is a heart-based person, then it is the heart that registers the love that is sent from spirit. And both paths will lead to the truth. And the reason both paths lead to the truth is both paths must at some stage become one. So the heart full of wonderment and worship, and the heart and the head full of understanding must come into loving awareness to reveal the truth of oneself. So it is important for the lady to take one step. And if she's called left, then that is right. That is correct. And if she's called right, then that is correct as well. The work is done not by her, but by the formless world. And she will realize at one stage that spirit is both external and internal. But if she was to find her spiritual truth, with the guidance and support of one that she trusts, then a path will be far easier, far more efficient. And she'll arrive at her destination in a smoother and easier way. So the question first is spirit external or internal? And that is the answer to the question.
Lovely. Thank you, Ignatius. Thank you. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Brandon, is there another question to be asked?
Yes, we do. Next one comes from Amanda. Amanda, please ask your question.
Hi, Ignatius.
Hi.
Um,
Are you well, my dear?
I'm quite well. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask a question about what I perceive as like a conflict between surrender and trying to make a change. I've been sharing a house with adults for more than 30 years. Um, the house where I live now, I've been there since 2002 for 22 years. And at present, my partner, who I've been with for 10 years, lives with me as well. We only have one remaining roommate, but we feel we're very much ready to live alone. My partner and I have discussed this, and I know it's important to him to transition to living independently. We can't kick our roommate out of the house. It's not our house. But we came up with the idea of telling him how we feel that and asking him to think about if he thinks he could move out sometime in the next 2 years. To me, this is not surrender because I'm asking another adult to make a change. I don't have a legal backing. So, I guess I'm concerned that we might be creating interpersonal tension going forward. But, I was just wondering if you could shed any insight on the situation, if it's okay to ask for help to make this change.
Right.
Because frankly,
Hmm.
I don't know the right way forward.
Well, your first path is to tell the truth, to be truthful to oneself, but also to be truthful to another. So if you said to this other person, the third person, what is truly occurring within your heart and your mind, and say to that person, this is the way we are feeling. It is our time to be alone. And ask them for their input or help in finding a solution to this problem or challenge. And if one said, this is our feelings and this is what we feel we must now do. And that leads us to two choices: to move away or for you to move away. What is the correct way for you? What would make your life easier? And by including the person in your truth, then you are saying to them, the essence is my connection with my partner. And it is not through any animosity we will ask you to either stay or to go, but that is the path that we must follow. And then you leave the decision to that other person. And they will say to you, well, I will stay for a month or two, or maybe long. And then there is a connection of love, as this true statement is inclusive and not exclusive. By making it inclusive, then there is no loss of feeling. And then the outcome must be lived by according to what your circumstance and the way the choices are made. Now, for some people, it becomes important to set a time limit and say, can you please think, which is the best way for you? And let us talk again next week or next month. But then that is the point of decision. And whatever decision is made, and one must act accordingly. So the idea behind this trail of thought is that the connection and love to the third person is just as important. Their sense of well-being is important. How do you know that it is not better for you to move to another part of town, or even another town, or even another state, I suppose? How do you know it's not in their mind also to move to another town or another state? But then if one follows and accepts the outcome, that for some reason you are called to move to another location, or the other person is called to move to another location, then there is surrender to that outcome. The ego will say that I have given my place so that you may stay still. And that then is seen as sacrifice and not surrender. There are many benefits by either being in the place you are now or even in another place, as one can start fresh. But by including the other person in love and listening to their needs themselves, that they will either be alone in this existing residence or will move to another. But with love in your heart, in that conversation, and then the surrender to whatever the outcome is to be, rather than asking for sacrifice either of self or another, then one is truly connected to the flow of events and life. The truth be known, you are on the cusp of many changes if you wish to take them. Some will occur sooner than others, but all changes can take place. The individual will not know whether one way is better than another, no matter how many calculations one does. But the truth of your soul is pushing you on to other experiences. That may just be living alone with your partner, or moving away to another town, also with your partner. So one should let go of the stranglehold of one's life. And the more one grips the neck of the human person, then the less connected to spirit one may be. So let the heart guide you. Let the heart be in all conversations and connections. And then you have the connection of your head and your heart and your soul all at the same time. And let love be in the adventure of a new place, or even the same place, with the adventure of a new stage in your relationship. You see, you win both ways, my dear, if your head and your heart are connected. Or you can lose whichever way you go if you allow one's ego to run the conversation and the demands of life. And that is what I mean by holding the neck. So do you want to win or do you want to lose?
I just want to love and have peace.
Well, peace then is the acceptance of whatever the result is, it is for your benefit. So include the other person in the conversation. Let your love be in your heart as you talk to them. Be open with them to say, this is our next stage. Let us talk again in 1 week, 1 month. Let's decide which is the way we should then act. Do not be scared of change if it is to happen. Be accepting of it. After all, that is still the play of life you are watching. The truth of you can accept the outcome no matter which way the conversation will go. And then there must be peace. If one wins either way because one is connected to their true self, then You see it all as an experience, no matter what it is. So let your heart be there and accept whatever is to occur. I will not be damaged. It is another experience to be had. Do you understand?
I do. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for your insight. What you shared was kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if that idea came from you initially, but I deeply appreciate the extra clarification and the actual steps, and all of the reminders. I'm just grateful. Thank you so much.
Remember, love and knowledge are sent at the same time. And which you pick up on is dependent on whether one is using the head or one is using the heart. Let them both be together. And therefore, all knowledge will be imbued by love. And then there must be the presence of spirit. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
Brandon, is there another question?
Yes, we have many. So this comes from Taylor. It seems as if so many mediums slash healers have to deal with illness or tragic events that happen in their lives. Is there a spiritual reason for this? Thank you.
Yes. Often, those who are dedicated to a path of service to another through the true connection of both healing and mediumship. Now, that is different to the ego connection of either one. Now, one must have some understanding, would put them in the best light of assisting another. The truth is also that for some who are giving of healing are also needing of healing. And therefore, the inner need is reflected as an outer need. So one should look at, why am I either healing or providing mediumship? And one must look internally to find that answer. So some are providing either service as a flow of service, and some are providing either service as a request for the inner work to take place for them. Now, the truth of the answer should be first find spirit, as in they should find their connection of their truth first. And from that truth, then work into the external world, which may be to either of those two products or other. So in finding my truth, then one will then be able to work from truth. So if you remember the first question, some will find spirit externally and some will find it internally, and the external will lead back to internal at some stage. So with the correct assistance, one may start the journey by looking inwards first. But again, if one must go outwards first, that is perfectly fine. I trust that I answered the question. Brandon, is there another question?
Yes, this comes from Petra. What does it mean for one to be enlightened and or awakened? Does enlightenment equal awakening? Thank you.
Right. One may have several awakening moments on their path to the full realization of oneself. And one says enlightenment or awakenings are special moments, but they are just glimpses of the truth. One is already sitting in the position of the enlightened being. And one, from that position, as I said, there is more work done from the spiritual side. From that position, one pushes quite strongly into the physical life so that the glimpses of truth may be seen. And those glimpses may come through the cracks in the human existence and be seen as synchronicities of special moments, of occasions, greater clarity. But if one sees it from the physical side, then one sees these events of miraculous. But if one sits from the non-physical side, then they are just an everyday occurrence and just an expression of truth. So if there was a big body of water underground and a little crack in the soil was to form, then water would spring forth, and it looks like a miracle. But the water was very naturally waiting underneath the ground. So then, if you look from the position of the water underground, it is completely normal that the water is wet and the water is available. Human side, they say it's a miracle. Why now? Spiritual side, it says, well, it is always now. Spirit, or in the story, water is available at all times. So turn your moments of awakening into the permanence of the spiritual truth. Take those glimpses of validations, the glimpses of pure love, the glimpses of enjoyable peace. See them as your true self is coming nearer to the surface. You are trying to allow spirit into the life. Let it flow. As one gets clearer to that flow, and it appears that more and more synchronicities are taking place. But the truth is, more and more love is flowing along the funnel into the world. And you are on the non-physical side, not the physical side. I trust that answers also. Brandon, another question if there is any.
Yes. This one from Deborah. How one knows whether they are doing enough to move along their spiritual path? Is it simply a question of gauging their joy and happiness? Thank you.
Right. As one walks along the spiritual path, the human side gets very frustrated with the pace it takes and also the quantity that is given. But the truth is everything will unfold in the very natural way that it is meant to unfold. So it occurs at exactly the right time. One can start to feel, if one is observant enough, a little more love every day, a little more peace, But it's such a fine difference from yesterday to today, the increased flow of love or peace, that it's almost negligible and one cannot see it. But with hindsight, if one looks back, then 12 months ago, you were a very different person. So it also becomes then a decision of choice. As if one looks at love and finds love to be enjoyable, then the logical question is, why do you not have more of it then? So as one then starts to let a little bit more water through the crack in the earth, then surely the answer is, well, let's remove a little more earth and allow a little bit more love or water to flow through. And of course, is the choice I am referring to. And of course, then, as I opened with my opening stories, well, really, what is happening is one is removing the obstacles to love. That is all the human world must ever do. And that the flow of love must occur naturally, but can be enhanced by focusing on it and allowing that to be the one's truth. So indeed, your comments are correct in that is my progress limited to how much love and peace is in my life? And perhaps we could be a little flippant and say, well, is that not enough? Do you want more? And if you want more, of course, then one focuses on what is true. So either one focuses on what is true or what is illusion. And the way to tell the difference is this always with me? Or will it just change from 1 minute to 1 minute, or from day to day or year to year, in which case it must not be true if it changes. Love is available to you at all time. You just need to turn your head towards it. But of course, the demands of the physical world and aches and pains in one body become very compelling. But that is then being drawn into the movie and not into the audience. Allow even more into your life. From a drip to a trickle to a flood to a permanent state of being. Thank you. Brandon, is there another question?
Yes. Wendy has a question that ties closely with Taylor's question. What is the benefit or purpose of physical pain?
What is the benefit of, I didn't catch the name.
Purpose of physical pain.
Of physical things.
Pain, physical pain.
Physical pain.
Yes.
Right. Well, all suffering that one has, be it the pain of a body or the pain of an emotion or pain in the physical world, is a sign of change. So in essence, one can get more pain at a time when there is more demands for change. Pain is really a call inwards. Are you really experiencing this pain? Or are you observing this pain, this suffering, this emotional turmoil arise into your viewpoint? Are you allowing that pain to dominate you? Have I fallen into it and believe that is who I am? And if one looks truly at oneself, then the answer will be no. I just watch this pain rise and I watch it fall. So the suffering one gets then, or the physical pain one gets, it either becomes compelling because one does not know of spirit, or a signpost towards spirit if one is on the path to true understanding. So if one, let us say, has sore teeth or a sore mouth, then the strength of that pain at times can be quite strong. But if one just has glimpses of just a little piece, and one must realize that they are just experiencing pain, which may be compelling for a short period, but one is not the pain. So all pain, all suffering is an opportunity to grow, to change, to realize that one is not that. And this will only occur if one truly looks at it and sees that I am much more than this fear, for example, this pain, this difficult situation that I am facing. I am more than that. And this is part of the danger that one can face if one looks external towards trying to find spirit or the enlightened being, or internally. Those who travel externally have a jungle they must walk through. Those who look internally will see that it is just an experience. This is a play. I am already there. I just need to dust my mirror. Now, some suffering can be driven because of change. Some, of course, is driven through karma. And karma is exactly the same answer. And that is something that is being removed from oneself that you are not. The true self has no karma. The body, the physical entity, has many karmas to deal with. One is a jungle, and one is an experience, depending on which way or where you look from. Brandon, is there another question?
I believe that is a wrap, right on time. Thank you so much, my friend, from all of us.
Then in that regard, then I ask you to see what is your truth. And your truth is either you are the external being and your deity is to found in the external world, or it's internal and to be found in the interior world. Which way you look is dependent upon your answer to the question. That is spirit external or is spirit internal? And your answer will determine whether you turn left or right. but both directions are best or easier travelled with the assistance of one who knows. Until next week, God bless you all.